Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Heath Holme, Ableton trainer and point blank Ibiza music instructor. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to create your very own Ableton dry wet control device, a handy tool to have for times when you are using Ableton audio effects that don't have a built-in dry wet control. And if we think creatively, we could also use a dry wet control device with an instrument rack, an audio effect rack, so we would be able to fade between a dry signal and a fully wet signal. So yeah, let's get started. I'm going to show you a little sound that I've created using an analog synthesizer and a chord MIDI device, which sounds like this. And what I want to be able to do is add an audio effect to this sound I've made that using an audio effect that doesn't have a built-in dry wet control. So I'm just going to come to the analog track and double click to open up that track. There is my synthesizer and my chord MIDI effect. I'm going to then come over to the left hand side of the Ableton browser, click on the circle with the triangle to open up the browser, and I'm going to head to categories, audio effects, and I'm going to grab myself this effect called a Redux, and I'm going to grab one of those and drag it over and drop it onto my analog track. Okay, I'm going to, inside the Redux device itself, change the downsampling from hard to soft, and then I'm going to play this sound again and dial in a little bit of the downsample so you can hear what the Redux device is doing to my sound. So as you can hear, it kind of adds this kind of crunchy, metallic, robotic kind of sound, a bit crusher kind of sound. There is a problem though. If I look over at the Redux, I don't have the ability to dial this Redux in all the way from dry, just the original sound by itself, to wet. So what I want to do is create my own Ableton dry wet control device containing this effect. So if I click on the top of the Redux to select it and then go to my keyboard and type in Command G, I'm then going to put the Redux effect into an audio effect rack, and I'm then going to come down to these circles on the left hand side of the effect rack and click the second one up from the bottom, which is show and hide chains, which opens up this section, and you can now see that I have inside this effect rack one chain containing the Redux, the original effect. Now I want to create a second chain inside of here, and the easiest way to do that is to right click the mouse below that original chain and then select create chain. And to do a little bit of housekeeping while that chain's selected, I'm going to choose Command R from my keyboard and type in dry. And I'm actually going to drag the dry chain up and above the original chain containing the effects. And then I'm going to click on the original chain, Command R, and I'm going to name that one wet. And so we now have in this audio effect rack one dry chain containing no effects and one wet chain containing our original Redux. That's fantastic. The next thing I want to do is click on this little box called chain to open up the rack further. And once I've got that rack section opened up further, I'm actually going to hold shift on my keyboard, select the dry and wet together, which is going to make life a little bit easier for the next task. And the next task is these little two blue columns here. I want to drag all the way out from the left to the right. So if I mouse over them, I get symbol changes, and when I get the change of this sort of bracket shape, I'm going to hold the mouse down and drag that blue and white bars all the way out to the right, from the left to the right hand side. I'm then just going to click on one of these chains just to deselect them from being selected together, and then I'm going to come over and start to do a little bit of work here. And the first thing I'm going to do is click on the dry chain, and I'm going to come over to the far right hand side, and just the white bar, not the blue bar this time, the white bar, I'm going to select that with the same mouse shape and drag it all the way from the right to the left. And then I'm going to do exactly the same but the reverse action on the wet chain. So again, mousing over the white bar, and just make sure you're just like what happened there, that you're just getting the white bar only, and then pulling it all the way from the left to the right. And you'll now see in that section there we've got this kind of fade down or fade in and fade out happening. If I was to then mouse over this pale blue line and move it around, I'd effectively be moving now between a dry signal and a wet signal. Now I want to make this rack a little bit more professional, so what I'm going to do is right click on this pale blue line and map it to a macro. I can then hide this section of the rack as I don't need to see that anymore. And I'm just kind of going to come over to the macro and do again a bit of housekeeping. Command R, I'm going to name the macro actually dry wet as I have the chains laid out. And I'm also going to give it a color. And I'm also going to name the rack itself. So I'm just going to click up the top here on the rack, Command R, and I'm going to call this the dry wet custom, whatever language you want to use there, but this is now my dry wet custom device within Ableton. So now let's come back to our sound, get it playing, and now I'm going to dial in some dry wet here. So nothing, dry signal, and then bringing in the effects. Now if I alter the filter a bit on the synth, I've now got a lot of control over it. I'm going to drop in a kick. Okay, so that gives you an idea of exactly what we were looking to achieve there. We've now got this Redux inside of our own custom dry wet control within Ableton. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save up this device that I've made here, and I'm just going to open up the Ableton browser again, and I'm going to head down to the user library, and somewhere in here I have a folder, Ableton Tools, and I'm actually just going to grab that and drag that over and drop it into that folder there. Now I didn't name it the Redux dry wet, mainly because if I was now to use this same device that I've created here, all I would literally need to do is come down to the wet chain, and I can delete the Redux device from there and then go and grab myself, for example, another audio effect, something like erosion, which also doesn't have a dry wet, drag it down, drop it onto the wet chain, and I now have a dry wet control over erosion. So if I leave it in the sine wave, bring in a little bit of sine wave sound here. Let's put the track playing again. Switching between the noise. So as you can see, I now have this really flexible dry wet control device that I can simply swap out whatever I'm using in the wet chain, and so it's a very versatile tool to have saved over in the user library. So that's going to be a wrap, guys. Sorry there wasn't a camera today, but unfortunately having a little problem with the webcam, so I've run this tutorial without a webcam. If you have any questions, follow-up questions, please let me know in the comments below. Of course, thanks for checking out the video. Please subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and give that like button a smash if you got value from watching this tutorial. So that's going to be it from me today. Peace out, thanks for tuning in, and catch you soon. Bye everybody, ciao.